The two camps over the weekend, the rival camps, were planning to merge fundraising forces to start talking about putting a supporter, a Clinton loyalist, as a running mate to heal the party. This taking place just over the last couple days. Two questions. Do you, from what you've read about these meetings, are they amenable? And do you think that the Obama camp, should he be the nominee, choose a Clinton loyalist, and it would be smart for him to do so as a running mate? Professor Voss?
Oh, I'm sure that ultimately they can work together. The differences in the sort of background teams for these two camps is very small. Where their differences exist, I think, mostly is in the mass behavior and in the regular folks who are supporting them. And the hard thing for Obama is not going to be to get a few Clinton activists behind him to give an image of unity. It's going to be to start positioning himself not way on the left to collect, Democratic activists, but to start positioning himself more in the middle to collect swing voters.
Mm-hmm. Professor Lowndes?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it will. Any show of unity they can pull together now is important. Parties that have not been unified going into the nomination and then into the general election have been historically hurt terribly at the polls, and so it does matter a lot that they're able to do that. And I think it's important that Clinton herself, should Obama get the nomination, which it looks like he will, signal to her supporters that she is throwing her strong support behind Obama, not just nominal support. But I think I don't think it'll be that hard for. The issues are cultural more than actually political. In some ways, Obama is not. He's not a left-winger, and I think that he culturally gets framed this way because of controversy and other things. But, he's mostly a centrist on foreign policy. He doesn't dispute the idea of kind of the U.S. as hegemon in the world. His economic policies are, kind of center-left, but not far liberal. And so I think it's not a matter of policy positions on which Clinton and Obama are quite close down the line. So it's really about, I think, how he's able to portray himself and how he gets portrayed to voters.
May I add something there?
Oh, sure.
When I say far left, I guess I should clarify. I did not mean relative to Hillary Clinton. I think they are. I agree. They're very close. The problem is that Democratic Party activists of both stripes are to the left of most voters, just as Republican activists are to the right of most voters. And so the dilemma when you have an election like this is always, how extreme am I willing to sound in the primary to get my core voters in my own party, and then how non-extreme can I then sound later when the general election rolls around, and I'm not sort of advertising myself to that same core group of committed people. So it's not that Obama's extreme left, it's that in fighting with Hillary so long, he's had to keep defining himself as a good Democrat, and that basically gives him a liberal aura going into the general election. McCain, because he hasn't had that serious competition for a long time, and is able to enter with a bit more of a clean slate to appeal to those middle ground voters, and that's going to be an advantage for him.
Yeah, and yet when you look at what the issues are, there are such clear differences between the two parties, certainly on the war, on tax cuts, on health care. McCain is moved toward examining global warming, but there is a substantial difference between the parties, don't you think?
If you're asking me, yes, absolutely, and there always is. That's been true for several decades, and the poor average voter is always stuck between, choosing between somebody they think's way too liberal for them and somebody they think's way too conservative for them. Mm-hmm. And the question is, which way do they break? Usually, they, leaving aside whatever's going on at the time, usually they break toward the candidate who's most been able to seize that middle ground in their messages and in their policy positions.
Well, that's true sometimes. I think in certain elections that's the case, and others it's not so much. I think, voters aren't in a static position in terms of left or right. I mean, if you look at, Bill Clinton's elections, he ran as a Democratic Leadership Council Democrat, and I think it's true that he ran to the center and was able to draw on a lot of Republican positions that helped him win two elections and helped kind of take the wind out of the sails of a conservative politics. But I think now it's an interesting election because Republican conservatism has been discredited in part because of Bush in the last couple of years. And so I think McCain is stuck between wanting to appeal to independents on the one hand, but needing to shore up a conservative base on the other. I mean, I think that's why he was chosen over more conservative possible candidates coming in. And so in some ways he looks a little bit like Jimmy Carter did in the 1980 election, or even 76. He needs to try to break with the old party, but he doesn't have a lot of warrant to reach across into Democratic camps. I mean, independents favor Democrats over Republicans on most issues right now. So I think in those ways, it's a complicated issue. I think Professor Voss is right. Both candidates are going to have to reach to the center, but they will do so in different ways. And I think it's right now Democrats have a little bit more credibility in claiming that space in kind of a way that Reagan did in 80, I think.
Mm-hmm. How ominous a sign is this that Democrats have won the last three special elections in traditionally strong Republican areas, including the most recent one in Mississippi, of all places, with Travis Childers, who's a conservative Democrat, but Republicans are getting a little bit worried about all of this. Professor Voss?
Oh, yeah, they certainly should, and those losses are a sign of where voters sit. So, I agree completely that if there's any election where a Democrat who's not from the South could take the presidency, keep in mind that hasn't happened for a generation. If there's any election where the Democrats are coming into it so strong that either a Barack Obama or a Hillary Clinton could win, it's definitely under these conditions.
Mm-hmm. Wait, and what you've written about race and the Southern origins of modern conservatism, is the South going to be somewhat different, do you think, this year, Professor Lowndes?
Well, I think the South has mostly, certainly white Southerners, had mostly realigned Republican over the last generation, as Professor Voss implied. I think, it's a little bit more open now. I feel like the territory is a bit more open, but partly here, and it's clearly the case in Mississippi, that it was the great mobilization of black voters that was decisive. Although, the Mississippi special election happened in one of the whitest counties in Mississippi. Blacks are 25% of the voting population there. So I do think the South is more open, but it seems to me that what these special elections have signaled is a little bit of a crisis of leadership at the top. I think it's a national problem for Republicans more than it is a Southern problem right now.